Hello, my name is Jesse Pulsinelli, and I'm going to be doing an overview of Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone became a national park on March 1st, 1872. President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act into law, making this the world's first national park. The park is so big that parts of it is in Montana, Idaho, but the majority is in Wyoming. In the early days of the park, it was upkept and built up by Nathaniel P. Langford, who was Yellowstone's first superintendent. During his time, he did not get paid, so he only came into the park a few times per year due to needing or earning a living elsewhere. And the park ended up taking a major downfall, and a lot of poachers came in and endangered the bison. But in 1866, Congress called upon the Secretary of War for assistance in strengthening the park. Poachers were an imminent threat to bison until the U.S. Army enforced regulations. President Hoover issued an executive order that increased the boundary by 7,000 acres after this, offering a winter refuge for elk. So, per a 2022 report by the National Park Service, Yellowstone received over 4 million visitors that year, and it's the highest to date. All this says is that the park is continuing to grow as an attraction every year. And in this picture, these are United States Army cavalry, and they are sitting and standing behind bison they protect. A geological wonder at Yellowstone is the Old Faithful. The Old Faithful geyser has continued to erupt regularly over time, delighting visitors with boiling water explosions that can reach up to 130 feet for many minutes. Each burst usually lasts for 2.5 minutes. The highest concentration of geysers in the world can be seen at the Upper Geyser Basin at Yellowstone National Park. There's about 150 geysers in total at Yellowstone. The time between eruptions since 1870 has increased as a result of nearby earthquakes and seismic events. Rainfall, though, naturally will affect the Old Faithful because of the greater volume of water in its basin increases the time between eruptions. The first documented observation of Old Faithful was reported by the Washburn-Doane-Langford expedition in 1870. Types of rocks found at Yellowstone and the time frame of development. Yellowstone National Park contains rock formations detailing roughly half of the Earth's 4.6 billion year existence. The three eras shown are the Paleozoic era, which is about 251 million years ago, Mesozoic era, 66 million years ago, and the Cenozoic era, which is 66 million years ago to the present day. In the mountains of the Gallatin Range in the park, you will see limestone, sandstone, and shale from the Paleozoic era. These rocks are sedimentary rocks. While in the Mesozoic era is when a lot of the major plate movement occurred, which resulted in volcanism at the Cascade Range. This era was also the time where the region became a shallow sea and left behind marine sediments that get exposed in the cliffs and slopes of Mount Everts. And you can find a lot of the sediments usually in the middle of these cliffs. And the Mount Everts is also where you find the Huckleberry Ridge tuff volcanic deposits from the caldera volcano eruption, and that's going to be usually at the top. During the Cenozoic era, though, about 66 million years ago, the Abosarocca volcanic field in Yellowstone got hotter due to the volcanic field. And so glaciation occurred, carving out the valleys and mountains, but also leaving giant boulders across the park, especially in Hayden Valley, which I will show you images of in a second. Yellowstone's youngest rocks are formed, though, by hydrothermal activity now. Here are the images of tough volcanic deposits that you can find at Yellowstone. So when you go to Yellowstone, try and look for this. And you also find at Yellowstone across the park these giant boulders the size of cars, the minivans, vary in size, but a lot of this occurred due to glaciation and moving these boulders around. It's all over the park. Historic events that has occurred at Yellowstone. There's been 3 major volcanic eruptions that formed the Yellowstone calderas when the volcano's magma chamber is emptied. The first eruption was the largest of the 3, and it occurred 2.1 million years ago and covered 5,790 square miles with ash. The next eruption took place 1.3 million years ago. It was smaller, but still impacted the western edge of the first caldera. So the most recent major eruption, though, happened 631,000 years ago, and if you go to Yellowstone, you're going to see the 30 to 45 mile wide Yellowstone caldera due to this. When this eruption happened, thick lava called rhyolitic lava was released from a most recent eruption that occurred 70,000 years ago. And it's extremely thick lava that flows slowly. But during an eruption, it tends to explode violently, producing large amounts of ash and pumice. And since then, there's been about 80 smaller eruptions since the major eruption. Future events that may be catastrophic to the park. Climate change has had a major damaging impact over the past decades of the park, and it is reasonable to assume this trend will continue due to global warming. Yellowstone has been getting hotter at a faster rate than ever before, with the rate is continuing to increase since the year 2000. Looking in the past, year 1988, there was catastrophic wildfires that burned through 800,000 acres of land due to record heat that year. So it kind of gives you an idea of how fast these fires will spread and how damaging they can be. And since then, wildfires are occurring much more frequently. So scientists warn us that continued climate change increases the chances of future large wildfires and severe droughts. And that's a major impact to the ecosystem due to these temperature changes. Yellowstone has an incredible amount of snowpack per year, but climate change is also affecting the amount of snowpack. Snowpack helps feed the streams at Yellowstone. Snowpack is basically layers of snow that builds up and gets really dense. And the stream patterns at Yellowstone are changing, and so is vegetation patterns due to the warmer temperatures. Glaciers are melting much faster and is throwing off the timing of the seasons, affecting wildlife and animals. Yellowstone's influence on wildlife and research. Yellowstone has the ability to be a very good setting where you will likely come across elk, grizzly bears, bison, and wolves at the same time. Travel routes at Yellowstone are very accessible for tourists and scientists. Lots of roads, not a lot of things to get in the way. The biggest impact Yellowstone has had in the field of animal behavioral research in the past decades is that it serves as the perfect environment for wolves. Due to Yellowstone's ideal conditions, many studies have been done of the wolf packs, travel routes, pathfinding abilities, and communication in the park's northern range. To kind of see how they communicate through the cliffs. Yellowstone's influence on the study of wolves has positioned it as the premier academic research grounds for scholars and researchers learning more about the wolves over the last 2 decades. Yellowstone wolves have spearheaded countless studies and influenced public opinion about their importance to the ecosystems and why we need them. The wildfires occurring at Yellowstone as a result of climate change is having a major impact on the rare bird population, habitats there. So ecological conservation groups at Yellowstone are putting forward more management to safeguard species in the park and help populations of endangered species. Yellowstone is unique geologically. In one site, you're going to be able to see fumaroles, hot springs, and volcanic residue. The mud spots found at Yellowstone are very unique. The texture and color is hard to find elsewhere. Yellowstone is known for having some of the greatest and most recognizable active hydrothermal sites in the United States, which you can see at the northern part of the lake. Hydrothermal vents are incredibly plentiful on the lake bed in massive sizes, like 400 feet wide and deep. Beneath Yellowstone is a supervolcano that is releasing massive amounts of magma that daily releases 45 metric tons of carbon dioxide, and volcanologists are watching very closely for future eruption and dangers, and what dangers it is to the atmosphere. Here is my works cited page, second page, citation, and thank you for listening. That is all.